I think that's the list. So we can get started. Welcome everybody to our little mini session here, isolating customizations with event mapping. This is a 20-minute session. So we hope to give you some of the basics about event mapping in this time and perhaps have some time to answer some questions. So feel free to pop questions into the chat window. Scott will watch it and make sure that I take a stab at it at least. So let's dive right in. So event mapping, well, I'm sorry, not event mapping first. First, you have to hear about us just a little bit. Gideon Taylor, we have been in PeopleSoft for 20 years now, and this year we had an acquisition and acquired Newberry Enterprise Services, which has rounded out our offerings from being very focused on business process automation and electronic forms to also being a full-service PeopleSoft consultancy, offering a full range of services, including always current services, managed services, cloud hosting, project staffing, centers of excellence, just about anything out there we can help with, including robotic process automation. If you have not heard of that and don't know how it can help your PeopleSoft implementation, please swing by and chat with us. We have more of these 20-minute sessions coming up. Take a second and grab a screenshot of this and see what you can squeeze in to learn some things with a short amount of time. It's like being in a drinking out of a fire hose. We're just going to pack it into you. So, event mapping. What is it? Event mapping is a tool that allows you to add custom code to delivered components, pages, records, and fields without modifying any delivered objects. Again, custom code to delivered components without modifying delivered objects. The skill set that you need, this is a technical tool. So you're going to be doing work in App Designer plus configuration in PIA. You'll need to be able to develop application class people code, and you need to know the portal registry navigation for your target component, and we will show you how to find that as well. It became available in Tools 855. The biggest changes just became available in 859 with the ability to replace delivered code. So previous to that, you could only run your custom code before or after existing code, and now you can actually replace that people code with your own. I'm hearing just a little bit of background noise, so I'm going to throw everyone on mute, but feel free to come off mute if you have a comment or a question. Okay, so this is a quick how-to. Now, our intent here, we're going to go ahead and give you some very low-level detail, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that detail. I'm going to just show you that it's here in our presentation. You should be able to download the presentation and get to that information so you can walk through this yourself. You begin by, You begin by writing some application class people code. And you do want to start with a specific template, and that template code is right here on this side. You're going to import and then implement a service interface class that's delivered by PeopleSoft. And then you're going to add your own code right in here to have it be executed by the related content service. So you're going to write your people code. You're going to define an app class related content service in the application. You're in the PIA. You're going to find the portal registry navigation to your target component. And then you're going to create an event map that ties that related content service you created to the component level people code event where you want it to fire. And one important thing to remember is that this is driven by the portal. So it's not really component level, it is portal level and then component. So if you have, for example, the same component that you can navigate to from multiple places in the component registry, you actually need to put the event map in multiple places, or you'll have it firing on the component sometimes and not on other times. Okay, so that's the overall process. Let's step through here and show you that working. So I'm starting out here in App Designer. I'm going to be adding, actually let me pause just briefly to say what the case that I'm using here is where I'm adding some new fields to a delivered fluid page. This is an HCM page. It's the fluid position management tool. And I've added some new fields to it using a drop zone, which is another great tool to customize delivered pages without customizing the delivered objects. And so I've added some new fields, but I want one of those fields to default to a different value when a delivered field changes. So I want to put some code under the delivered field so that when it changes, I can set my other field to a particular value. So that's what I'm going to do here. And I'm going to start by writing this application package. I'm going to give that package a name, and then I'll give the class a name, any name I want. And then I'm going to edit that people code and paste in the template code that I shared on the previous slide. So there's the template code. I'm going to put in my own position or my own class name, and then I'm going to paste in my own code here. And I'll pause for just a second so you can see it. It's basically going to look at the existing field, the existing grade field, and then based on that, and it's also looking at the record that I added that has my extra fields on it. That's gPosInData.ext. And I'm going to get that grade value, and based on its value, I'm going to set the annual review level of which is one of my custom fields. Okay, so simple code. I'm going to save that. Now I've got a chunk of code in that class, but I have no way to trigger that. So before I can trigger that, first I need to come into People Tools, Portal, Related Content Service, and define Related Content Service. This is going to put a related content wrapper around my application class. So I create this new service ID and give it a name, and then I'm going to change the type to application class. That allows me to put this wrapper around the class that I already built. This will give me a related content method service that will call this class when I want it to. And then I'm going to save it. Now, my next step is I need to know the portal registry navigation. So I'm going to drill into the application that I'm actually adding these fields to. And I'm just going to go in far enough. I'm going to come in and clone an existing position. I'm just going to get far enough so that I can hit Control J, and or depending on your browser, Control Shift J or Alt Control J or Alt Control Shift J, whatever it takes to get this window up so that you can see what component you're actually navigating to. So here is my component, position data FL. So I grab that, and then I can jump out because I don't really care about being there. I just needed to get there. Now I can use the second half of this navigation tool by going to Enterprise Components and then Find Object Navigation. Then I can paste in my fluid component. And again, that was Enterprise Components and Find Navigation. So now by pasting in the component, I can see that this component only appears one place in the portal registry. If it appeared multiple places, you need to do this multiple times because it does really go, again, by the portal registry. It doesn't go by the component itself. So you don't want to end up having different behavior depending on how you navigated to the component. But in this case, it's only one place on the portal navigation, so I'm going to copy that and save it off someplace for safekeeping while I go to the next step. The next step is to go back to People Tools, Portal, and Related Content Service. So People Tools, Portal, Related Content Service, and then the next one down is Manage Related Content Service. And that has a tab up at the top specifically for event mapping. So once you get into Manage Related Content Service, you go to Event Mapping, and you're going to see a list of existing event mapping entries. You're going to map application classes to component events. That lets you create a new one here. So now you're coming to a view of the portal registry tree. But important detail here, you need to hit that Include Hidden CREFs button up at the top, especially since we're working on a fluid page. That means that they're always hidden. So when I hit that Include Hidden CREFs, it opened up fluid structure and content, and then I can drill down based on what I found in the previous step to manage positions. Now you can see that it's easy to go wrong here. There's one right above it called Manage Position, which isn't it. So you have to be very detailed, very specific to what you found in the previous step. So drilling in here, now I can come down. You can see that I can do page level event mapping, component record, or component record field level event mapping. We're going to do component record field level mapping because we want to do a field change event on this particular component. Now, here's another thing you'll see. There's another checkbox you're probably going to need. I'm going to go ahead and put in my field name, position data E, that has the grade on it. But if you look here, my grade field is not showing. Oh, where is it? Well, this edit, this valid value lookup, is extraordinarily strict. It usually will not find what you're looking for. So you have to click this unrestricted prompt button. Now it will find much more than what you're looking for, and you want to be careful again because you can end up picking fields that may not actually even be on the component, that may just be on records that are on the component. So now though, the list is definitely long enough for me to scroll down and find the grade field that I'm looking for. Now I hit that select lookup and I can look up all the service IDs in the world and find the one that I created, which is POSM Data X2. Okay, so now I have related my service ID, which has the app class on it, which has the method on it that runs my code. And it's now associated with the field where I actually want that code to fire. Now I can add a sequence number because I could have multiple associations with this one field. And then I can pull up the process sequencing, which you can see is either pre-process or post-process. That's saying, okay, let's assume there's already some people code there. Do you want this code to run before that runs or after it runs? Now in 859, you have another option where you can actually run it instead of the code that's there. And there are situations where you need to do that. And it's not necessarily because you don't want the delivered behavior to fire. Sometimes you need to put your calculation in the middle of the delivered code. And so you've got to actually take the delivered code, put it in your app class, insert the stuff, your stuff in the middle of it, and run it all together. So that's a great benefit. And there also, I believe, were some restrictions that required there to be some code there in order for you to add an event, and they have removed that restriction as well. So you can add whether or not there's code there. So that's so once I select this, I say I want to run it after, then I save it, and that's it. I have now added the event mapping. I can go back in and see it work. So going back into into my target app component, and if I scroll down here, you will see the grade field is delivered, but these three fields there, budget source, annual review level, and handles HIPAA, are new. And as I change the grade field, you can see the annual review level field changes to depending on the grade range that I've selected. So as I move that grade up, the annual review level goes up as well. And all of that is done without making any changes to delivered objects, which means that those objects will not show up on the compare reports. So the whole reason you want to be doing this is because you want to be able to uptake new functionality that comes out in these PUMs that are released every quarter. You don't want to have to reapply all your modifications every quarter. It used to be that when you did an upgrade every 3 years or so, you could go ahead, swallow hard, reapply all your mods in this big month-long project. But now you got to be able to do this multiple times a year in order to stay current. So by moving your customizations into, as in Oracle parlance, by isolating them, by moving them into configuration options or extensions like event mapping, or by moving them into the bolt-on space, for example, by using either building your own custom applications or by using GTE forms, which we happen to sell, that can allow you to extend delivered applications without customizing. By doing that, you can clean up your PeopleSoft installation, make it much faster to uptake new functionality from Oracle. And event mapping is one of the key tools that allows you to do that. So here are some reference materials, a few last things to remember. There is an event mapping. One of the things that when event mapping first came out that I worried about is, gosh, how are you going to remember where that behavior is coming from? Make sure that event mapping is part of an initiative and that you approach it in an intentional way and document it well. If you only use it once and you never tell anybody or make any record that you did it, no one's going to be able to find it again, and it'll probably get lost in an upgrade or something. So make sure that you're using the correct portal registry navigation. Make sure you document well, and there is an indicator in App Designer that shows whether the component has event mapping associated with it or not. You can find information about those and other things in the referenced links. They'll give you a good head start on your event mapping journey. And that is my 20-minute mini session. Any questions or comments? You're welcome to come off mute and chat. I'm happy to take questions or just unvarnished praise.
This is Carl Herzberg.
Hi,
Can
Carl.
you hear me?
Yes.
So if you have a chunk of people code in the middle of a long string of people code and it has to be executed sequentially, say for example, open enrollment, e-benefits is notorious for that.
Right.
What would you suggest? I mean, just because you can't tell it to run before or after.
Yeah, that's where the easy answer is get onto 859, because then you can run instead. You can replace the existing code. Basically, you copy their code, put it in your event, put it in your app class, and put your code in the middle. So that is, it's not 100% ideal, because then you now have their custom code copied someplace, and if they change their code, you need to be manually updating your event mapping to incorporate that. But it's still better than modifying their delivered code. So if you're not on 859, that's a situation where event mapping isn't going to do it for you, because you before 859, you have to choose before or after.
Thank you. And yeah, we're getting to 859 pretty shortly here.
Gotcha. Very good. Sometimes you can accomplish it by using both before and after code. If you can set something up beforehand and then capture it based on what happened after. You can try some tricky things like trying to get the code to run twice and have the first pass set the state and the second pass update it, something like that, so that you run the first half of the code the first half of their code the first time, the second half the second time. But it gets pretty hairy. It's better to be on 859. Great question, Carl.
The disadvantage of that would be, I think, you cannot see that on the compare report. Like, if you take all the code and use that on the event mapping, the delivered code would still be delivered. And if anything changed by the PeopleSoft, that would not be on the compare report. So you have to go manually look at if there is any change delivered by the PeopleSoft. I think
I'm sorry, Tilak. Your audio is a little bit rough, and I did not catch all of that. Can you? Was that a comment on Carl's question or a separate question?
That was just a comment. So what I was saying is, for the 859 process, if there is anything delivered by the PeopleSoft, then it won't be visible on the compare report. So anything new changes, PeopleSoft delivers, you probably have to go manually and look at it to include that on your event map.
Right. Oh, thank you. Yeah. So I think just to restate, he's saying if you do copy any delivered code in, you can check on your compare reports to see if there are any changes to the delivered code, and then know to move that into to your copy that's in the event map. Thank you, Tilak. Any other questions or comments? Okay, well, very good. Well, I'm not in any hurry is there another mini session starting right after this one, Scott?
In 5 minutes, but that's going to be on another channel, so people can hang out here if they've got additional questions, or if they just want to shower you with praise.
I am fine with that. I can never take a long enough praise shower. Always run out of praise water before I'm done, before I'm ready. So you're welcome to stay. What is the next session that we can pitch?
We have one coming up. There's a link in our booth, as well as the main agenda for Page and Field Configurator. So we're going to do a similar session to this, only it's going to be more of a case study, walking through a specific customer example where we modified the behavior of over 100 different fields through configuration with Page and Field Configurator.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very good. Frank, did you have a question?
I actually did. I was trying to click on these links, and for some reason they're just redirecting me to the People Tools 857 page. But the main question is, I'm assuming that in metadata, we could find where all of these event mappings are located, including like if we have multiple content references that point to the same component and we only have the mapping on one of the content references, we would be able to see which one that is. Is that an accurate statement? And if so, have you guys or anybody that you know of put together PS query or some sort of a report that can help us keep track of those?
I think you are the first one with that idea, Frank, as far as I know. But yes, I think you're right. All of that's stored in metadata. So yes, you should be able to run a report to get that information. I don't know of anyone that has written it, but I know a consultancy close to you that would be happy to write it for you.
Or that's something I might want to put one of my students working on. It'd be kind of a fun thing to have.
Paul Eo said in the chat that there are delivered reports for Event Mapper events, and I'm sure that there are. I would be surprised if there's one that does what Frank is asking for and actually checks to see for each entry if there are any other if that component is listed anywhere else on the component registry where that event map doesn't exist. And yeah, that would be a good senior project for a student developer.
So yeah, Paul, if you have some examples, a URL or something that can point me to some of those things that might already exist, that might be a good place to start.
Yeah, otherwise you might have to modify one of these existing ones to include a few other tables and checks. There are also some bit of fine definition references in the actual IDE as well, but that's really slow to do component by component.
Right. Very good. Yep. Thank you very much, Paul. Appreciate that contribution and great question, Frank. Anyone else? Okay. Well, this is where it's probably best for me to stop, or I'll be tempted to break into song since I have it's not a captive audience, but that is one way to clear the room.
Right. You are a wise man. Great session. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for coming.